What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Wager Alarm. I'm Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. We're doing NFL player props in this latest series here. We are talking running backs today. If you missed our quarterback prop, well, go back and check it out on Wager Alarm. We gave you 5 props that we like for quarterbacks this year. Now we're talking running backs. So, Craig, talk to me here. When you're looking at running back props and stuff like that, well, no, I guess first, hi, how are you?
I'm well.
I never ask you how you're doing, man?
Well.
I'm so
good
sorry.
To see you. Good to be back for another season with you.
I'm all business, Craig. I'm all business. No time to waste here. I get caught up in it sometimes.
Running back props today. So here's an interesting thing to think of. There are certainly going to be players that are going to outperform expectations. And a good example of last year is James Robinson. Could anybody bet that prop last year, Howard? I don't think that there was a prop for James Robinson sitting out there on FanDuel or anywhere else. So let's break it down. Derrick Henry went over his prop, I'm sure. Did Ezekiel Elliott? No. Did Dalvin Cook? No. Did Christian McCaffrey? No. How about Saquon Barkley? No. And there you have it, folks. Focus on the unders with these running backs. Unfortunately, it's a damaging position. And if you're considering betting an over on a running back that has a prop of over 1,000, I mean, you really got to be confident in it, I think, Howard, going into the season. You can find some 600s or 700s or 800s, some rookies you could project to have great years, but we've seen it so many times before. There is not a healthy season overall with running backs, and hopefully this will be the year. My focus is more on the middle range.
And I hear you on that. And even with, it's not even so much also it's the taxing position and the injuries that we've seen, but you've got so many teams that are moving into tandem running back situations. I mean, we've seen that over the years, but even more so now. Just recent talk now about the Miami Dolphins right in your backyard, Craig. Brian Flores, who went all in with Myles Gaskin last year, is all of a sudden now he's talking about, well, I'm going to work it situationally, and I've got, Malcolm Brown if I want a banger, and I've got Salvan Ahmed if I want somebody with more speed. So we're seeing a lot of that as well. So it's not just the injuries, it's just general usage rate for a lot of these guys because coaches are all about the fresh legs. They love getting the fresh legs in there. So,
Sure.
I can dig that. All right, well, let's take a look at some of the props that you pointed out to me earlier, and we'll see how we stand on them. Number one, you want to dive in right now to the Tampa Bay backfield, Craig? Say it ain't so, bro. Say it ain't so.
Yeah, I'm a believer in Ronald Jones, and it's not that I think he's going to rush for 1,400 yards. But, Leonard Fournette, he was cut by Jacksonville, and I know he came in and played fairly well when Ronald Jones was out and he had the injury and he had COVID. But I'm sorry, Jones rushed for 200 yards against Carolina, and I know that made up the lion's share of his yards last season, but he was more or less the guy later in the season and even in the Super Bowl. And I think that he bounces back in. And Howard, I really don't understand this prop because he rushed for 978 yards with all those things considered last year. So for me, look, I think Fournette is going to make the team, and I do think that he'll play somewhat of a factor. But I am going to go over on Ronald Jones, and I do want to say all of these with caution. When it's an over, it's over the total. It doesn't mean I think Ronald Jones is going to run for 1,400. I don't think that. But when you're giving me a prop of a running back that's under 1,000, and I think he's got a chance to at the very least split, or maybe even get 65-35, 70-30, I'm probably going to take a shot on the over there. And I think that that's the direction I'm going to go here with Ronald Jones, over on his prop this year.
Yeah, the prop this year right now, we're looking at FanDuel lines, FanDuel Sportsbook, 725.5.
That's low, man.
It is low, and that's one of the things that we kind of look at, and trying to identify when they're making a mistake. I do MLB strikeout prop bets,
Sure.
On a daily basis, and I'm like, how is this guy only got 3.5 strikeouts there? Let me take a look at that a little bit more. So I get you on this one here. For me, it's, Ronald Jones is not a guy who I like to kind of gamble on or whatever. I'm not going to argue against the over here for him, but I do look at this Tampa Bay situation, and it's like watching the Patriots. No offense, but it's Tom Brady,
Right.
and they bring in Gio Bernard, and that's going to handle the passing down work, and what's Ronald Jones. So it's an interesting bet because it's low.
Right. I think, Howard, that's the point. Think about this. If Ronald Jones rushes for 800 yards and 4 touchdowns this season, he does not have a good year. But that's for fantasy.
Yep.
This is just to go over his prop and betting. It doesn't have to be that much. It's 17 games. He's got to get 40 yards a game, Howard. I mean, I don't know. It seems low for a player that I feel like is going to get his fair. He's not going to get 200 carries, but I think he could come close. And I think Fournette was given away by Jacksonville. And I know Tampa, and look, nothing taken away from him. He was definitely very good for them at the end of the season. But I think Jones is back this year. I think he's going to be pretty good.
All right, beautiful. Moving on over, we're taking a look at a rookie. Hello, Najee Harris, bell cow back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you remember when we did our win total and we talked about Pittsburgh, we kind of had them on the under.
Yeah.
And they were at 8.5. Najee Harris, he's at 1,000.5 yards. You like the under or the over here, Craig?
Yeah, I do like the over here on Harris because of a couple of things. I am still worried about Ben Roethlisberger. I think the Steelers are going to scale back Ben Roethlisberger. And unfortunately, I think Harris is going to be one of those. And by the way, Harris was an unbelievable running back at Alabama. I mean, he was every bit better, by the way, than Derrick Henry was or Alvin Kamara was at Alabama. I mean, I don't want to even mention Trent Richardson. Harris was better than all those guys, and he came on late in the season. My worry for Harris is for the future. And why? Because I think Pittsburgh is going to abuse this guy this year. I really think he's getting 200 carries. I think in his first year, they're just going to keep feeding him the ball over and over. It feels to me like a Le'Veon Bell situation. So what does that mean in the end? Is he going to have 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns? Folks, this is not fantasy. This is wagering. If he gets 1 yard over 1,000, you win the bet. And this is averaging, again, 50, 60 yards a game. He's going to be a major part of the offense. I think he's probably not going to be as good as most people think, but definitely good enough to get 1,000 yards in his first year in the NFL. And I think at this point, unfortunately, it's fair to say I'm going to be wrong on Benny Snell. I really thought Benny Snell was going to be good in the NFL. I loved him at Kentucky, but it doesn't even look like he's the backup at this point. And they have no one else. They really have no one else. So this is not a Mewelde Moore situation or some other running back.
You just keep pulling out the names here, Craig. Go ahead.
Howard, they've always had the running back, right? The Bettis, the Parker, but they've always had that guy lurking that you're like, oh, I hope that guy doesn't come in. And that guy's good too. Wasn't Devonta Freeman on Pittsburgh?
You kind of do here, though. Let's also acknowledge the fact that it's a garbage offensive line.
That's true.
It's a garbage offensive line. And Anthony McFarland, who's sitting on that roster, also has time spent in college with Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator. So I do think McFarland kind of has the capability of lurking a little bit. I don't necessarily know if it's enough. I think like the pick here, the over on the pick here is strictly about volume. And he's going to see 20 carries a game.
Yeah. He doesn't have to in order to get 200 rushing. But yes, that's what it's about. If he gets 20 carries a game, he's going to have 300 rushes this season. I don't, or close to it. But I don't see that happening. I still think he gets over 1,000 yards this year. That's where I'm at.
All right, there you go. Moving on over to Baltimore. How about everybody's favorite J.K. Dobbins? The prop here is the same amount, 1,000.5 yards. You've got a quarterback who poaches the runs. You've got Gus Edwards who poaches runs. I kind of have a feeling you're leaning on the under here.
Yeah, and look, the Ravens, when they had Jamal Lewis and some other really good running backs, they used to give those running backs 250, 300 carries. But pretty much, Howard, the last 8 to 10 years, it doesn't matter who they have. They're splitting carries with guys. And I think Dobbins is going to be disappointing this season for a lot of people. The last 1,000-yard rusher that was a running back, Howard, for Baltimore, there's no way you'd guess it. So I'll just tell you. You want to take a shot at it? I don't know.
Well, then it's earlier than It's earlier than Mark Ingram.
I can't find a season where Mark Ingram rushed for 1,000 yards on Baltimore.
So who do you got?
Justin Forsett.
Really? Oh, I remember that year.
Just 2014, Justin Forsett. It's not happening. Dobbins is going to run for 800, 900 yards. He's not going to get 1,000. They're not going to give him enough. They don't rely on one guy. You mentioned Gus Edwards. In the past, it was, I think, Alex Collins. They use 3 runners. I mean, it's maddening, but are you going to question Baltimore? All they do is win 10 games or 11 games every year. So, yeah, good year for Dobbins. Probably a lot of touchdowns, by the way, but not 1,000 yards. Nope.
All right. You got one more here, and I love this one here. I love this one here. So everybody's out there is like, oh, well, if Bender loves this bet, it's got to have to do with Nick Chubb, right? Because Bender loves Nick Chubb more than anything else. I think I actually like Nick Chubb more than Pete Carroll likes Chris Carson. And that is a big statement to make. So what are we talking here with Nick Chubb? Are we talking rushing yards? Are we talking touchdowns? Are we talking his over-under prop on how many passes he doesn't catch? What do we got?
Yeah, I've pivoted over here to most rushing touchdowns this season because I really didn't like any of the other over-unders with running backs, honestly. Like on FanDuel, they have like Javonte Williams and some really unpredictable running backs that I would just be guessing here. And to be honest with you, when I'm giving away a prop that's 7.5 to 1, I'm guessing. I mean, let's be real. But there isn't a running back on the board here to lead the league in touchdowns that is any lower than 5 to 1. So what is FanDuel telling you? That you have a shot here to find someone that could win this thing that isn't named Derrick Henry. And I think Chubb has got a great shot. I think Cleveland is going to stick to exactly what worked last season. I know it's not fair to extrapolate numbers over the course of the season when a player is injured because that's what happened to Chubb. But if you do and just give him those numbers that he missed with injury time, my gosh, he's going to lead the league in almost everything. So I don't think Kareem Hunt is a factor at the goal line. I think it's Chubb's to win. And again, being transparent, didn't love a lot of the other over-unders, so it's going to take a dart throw here, and Chubb at 7.5 to 1 to win the rushing touchdown title. I think it is extremely reasonable to think with the way that Cleveland runs the ball.
Well, and that's the key. I mean, if you're going to look at that, you look at Derrick Henry, you look at Dalvin Cook, you look at Christian McCaffrey, and you look at Ezekiel Elliott. McCaffrey, rushing touchdowns, who knows, right? Both, you want to say rushing and receiving, well, then, yeah, maybe you lean on McCaffrey. But for just straight up rushing touchdowns, I love this call on Nick Chubb. I do. So for 7.5 to 1, yeah, please.
That's good. $100 to win $750. That's a fair shot there.
I do unspeakable things for that kind of money. Come on. Unspeakable. Well, I want your son to be able to watch these live streams here, these videos. So I don't want to say any bad words.
He'll be sitting in here. He'll be the Tuesday nights and Friday nights. He's a big 9 years old. He's a huge gambler.
I love it. Raise him right, baby. All right, so here we go. Ronald Jones over 725.5 rushing yards. Najee Harris over 1,000.5 rushing yards. J.K. Dobbins under 1,000.5 rushing yards. And throw that dart, baby, on Nick Chubb at plus 750 to win the rushing touchdown title for the NFL this year. I love it, Craig. I love it. Great stuff, as always. You bring the heat each and every time, man. How do you do it?
You know what? You should stick around because the wide receivers I like more than the running backs.
Ooh, interesting. So I'll tell you what, that'll do it for us here with the running backs. You guys will have to just come back tomorrow, check out the next video because that's when we take on the wide receivers. But for my good friend Craig Mish, big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells, who always does a tremendous job for us. I'm Howard Bender. This has been Wager Alarm, and we'll catch you next time.